Kick and chase by Mullins. Kick and chase again by Mullins. It'll be a miracle. Oh, it is a miracle. Fafita tries to crash his way over. He does. Fafita got the ball over the line. Hunter's kick is over the sideline for a 40-20.
Yeah, g'day champions and welcome to 40-20 Sports. Today we're going to have a little look in the Supercoach realm with the Dolphins, Titans and Storm. We're going to have a look at their teams and how they shape up for the 2025 season and how they went in the 2024 season. Before we get into all that good stuff, just want to talk a bit about the 40-20 Cup. That is our public league that we ran last year. Outstanding numbers for last year. Look, we had nearly 700 players in that, coaches, whatever you want to call yourselves. Really, really encouraging numbers there. It was our first year last year, so I was going to be happy if me, the missus, and a couple of mates joined up to it, but nearly 700 people jumped on board for that. So rewarding that for last year's efforts. Fingers crossed we can break that 700, 800 mark this year, and we're going to have a bit more of a prize pool for that. Stay tuned. We'll release the information on that and what the prizes will be there. We're not going to run a first prize only, though. It'll be first, second, and third. I think that's a better system when there's that many people involved and keeps a bit more people interested throughout the year. So, yeah, touching on that, the Jack from Do We Get a Bags last year was our winner. We're still chasing you, mate. We've got that prize pack for you ready to ship off whenever you get a hold of us. Jump onto our Instagram. As with everyone, jump onto our Instagram. Get a hold of us there. We have a little player profile on every team that we're going to release up until season start. So please jump onto that. It'll be down the bottom there. Jump onto there, have a look, and yeah, we'll run with that. First of all, we're going to have a look at the Dolphins. They finished 10th last year with an 11 win and 13 loss record. Cruelly missed the semi-finals in the last round. Round 27, lost to the Knights there in the Hunter. Look, decent year from the Titans, considering all their injuries. The injuries, I think, were the reason that they didn't get into the semis. You know, the likes of Gilbert and Flagler missing out and the entire season just damaged them. They relied on old heads getting them there. Started off really well. They were first after the first 4 rounds, I think it was. So the start of the season was phenomenal, as it was last year. Christian Wolf comes into the side as head coach after the departure of Wayne Bennett. It'll be very interesting to see how he goes, but he's been doing a wonderful job coaching Tonga there, so expecting big things. For the signings, they have gained Daniel Safidi there from the Knights, Junior Tupou from the Tigers, Kulikefu Finifuiaki from the Cowboys, and Matt Fegai from the Dragons. The losses, though, they're pretty extensive, the losses, with Tavita Bangai Jr., he's off to Catalans. Edric Lee has retired. Ewan Aitken heads to the Rabbitohs. Jared Wallace, and Jesse Bromwich, they are retired. Tessie New to the Lee Leopards. Valence Tafare, he's over in Japan at the moment playing Japanese rugby. Scored a nice try a couple of weeks ago that I saw. He'll no doubt be a cult hero over there. Jeremiah Simbican, he's gone to the Castleford Tigers. And Anthony Milford has got a shot in Queensland Cup. I think he signed for someone there. And Robert Jennings remains unsigned. So, like I said, a heap of cavalry leaving the Dolphins this year. So, potential there for some players to get some good minutes that weren't getting them last year. Their run for the first 5 games are the Rabbitohs at home, Knights away, Tigers at home, Broncos at home, but that is at Suncorp, so a bit iffy on the home game there. That's more of a Broncos home game than a Dolphins, the poor buggers. And then the Titans away is the first 5. So that's a pretty good run. I think the Rabbitohs game coming up against Wayne, that'll be a decently hard game. But then they've got the Knights and Tigers. I still think the Tigers are going to leak a few points. Broncos at home, that'll be a battle of Queensland, so big brother, little brother sort of thing. So that'll be a tightly contested one. But the Titans away, they should be able to form some form of points there on the Goldie. Again, we're just going to run from this hooker to fullback. So keeping it who I think is relevant and who teams are looking at getting for the season. We're just going to have a bit of a look at those sort of players. So if I've missed anyone, jump on our socials and we'll get a hold of you and let you know our thoughts on them. First up, we got Max Plath. He does have 2 RF duels, but we're going to run him in our hooker position for today. 617k with a 63-point average. Look, if you're paying up for hookers, I think he's a decent buy. Season start, he wasn't getting very many minutes, but he ran into that 80-minute lock roll towards the season end. With games over 70 minutes, he had a 68-point average, going sub 50 only the 2 times in 14 games. So that's really promising there. A bit of the risk at the moment is around Tom Gilbert coming back. There's thoughts that he's looking to be right for round 1. Whether he plays a middle role and choosing to Max Plath, or Plath goes into hooker to relieve Jeremy Marshall-King, not really sure. It's a new coach this year. We'll have to get a bit of a game plan on what he's thinking about, what he wants to run that sort of rotation. But every chance Gilbert goes onto the edge, and then Max Plath just stays the same. Has that sort of 80-minute lock roll, 70 to 80 minutes. So yeah, we'll look at that. We'll pick that up in the trials, no doubt. Jeremy Marshall-King is the other one there at 555k. 56-point average there for Marshall-King. Look, there was a bit of interest around him at the start of last season. I think that's dropped off this season after, he finished the season pretty poor last year. He had a high score of 50 in his last 5 games, so pretty average the last 5. I know he was battling through some injury, but look, I think he's a bit of an avoid up until the Origin period. We'll have a bit more of a look at him then and see how he's faring there. The front row forwards, we'll touch on Tommy Flegler. Look, he remains in doubt for the start of this year and potentially next year. So terrible news for Tommy Flegler with that nerve injury there, but wishing him all the best. Fingers crossed he can get on the park soon, because they're a bit skinny in the forwards, I believe. Daniel Safidi coming up from Newcastle. He is 429k with a 43-point average. There's every chance he starts straight in the front row forwards, and he's their heavy hitter for the 2025 season. Look, he averaged 43 minutes a game last year, but did spend a good chunk behind Leo Thompson and his brother Jacob Safidi there at the Knights. Round 17 onwards, though, he was getting starter minutes. There was some injuries there in the forwards. He had a 54-point average over 50 minutes from round 17 onwards. So, look, there's a bit of value there at 429k. Again, I think it's a bit of wait and see. I wouldn't be starting with him, but 429k is pretty juicy for him. He's played Origin. I think he'll be the leader of that pack to start anyway. Depends if Tom Flegler comes in there. But yeah, I think Daniel Safidi is a decent option. If you're not prepared to pay up a shitload of money in your forwards, 429k is nice. In the 2RFs for the Dolphins, we've got Tom Gilbert at 462k. Hasn't laced the boost ups since mid-2023 due to injury, but fingers crossed he'll be fit and firing for the start of 2025. Leading into 2024, he was priced at 602k, so that's a huge discount we're getting on him, nearly 140k discount on what he would have been, albeit he has been out for a long time with injury. Look, it's going to be interesting. Like we said, how is he going to share his minutes with Max Plath? Is he going to start on an edge? Is he going to play in the middle? We're not sure. 2023, Gilbert, look, he was only averaging 60 minutes anyway and had a 59-point average. So if he doesn't get that middle role and he doesn't get the second row forward role, look, all he's got to do is kind of punch out 60 minutes anyway to be relevant. He wasn't playing 80 minutes to get 59 points, which is promising. So even with these injuries, they will probably try and nurse him back into it a little bit. He only has just started running. This is the 12th of January we're doing this. So, again, he doesn't need the full 80 minutes to be relevant, which is really promising. If he gets 60 minutes, averages 60 minutes for the season, he still could average 60 points if he comes back and he's the same player as what he was before the injuries. Finafuiaki, he is at 368k, 37-point average. Could be an option if he gets the starting role. That is a massive if. They did have an opposed session there where he was starting on the edge there, the edge forward role, but I don't think Gilbert was into full training yet. So very interesting to see how he goes in the trials. Bit of hesitancy around Finafuiaki is that he has a very low PPM of 0.7. I think he needs to bump that up a bit. It's decent, but if you could get it a bit higher, it'd be a bit nicer. He seems to dodge a bit of the base sort of work, but yeah, look, we'll talk about his games where he gets over 70 minutes a game. I think there's a bit of value there. Last year, in games that he did play over 70 minutes, he had a 51-point average. So he comes in at a good price. If he can lock down an edge spot, if they play Gilbert in the middle, I think he's a decent option, 368k. He's very popular. He's in everyone's side. Just goes lacking a bit. Hopefully, being at a new club, he'll sort of sort that out. One that's not really relevant, but one to keep an eye on we've got here is Oren Keeley. He is 274k. He played 6 games last year. 31-point average, dual front row forward. I don't know how he got that because he's a bit of a slim sort of fella, and I don't think he played much front row forward at all. But just keep an eye on him. If he gets decent minutes with all the departures, he has a PPM just a smidgen under 1. So a bit of a look there if you get interested at that price. The halfback, look, a bit slim in the halfback and 5'8" position there for the Dolphins. Supercoach-wise, Isaiah Katoa is at 390k with a 40-point average. Look, I think he's got a shitload of potential. Isaiah Katoa, he's only 21 going into the season, so still super young for a halfback. Look, he only went over the 50-point mark 6 times out of 22 games last year, so he doesn't really have that ceiling. He doesn't even really have a big consistency about him, but again, he's only 21. I think draft system, if you miss out on a decent halfback and you're looking to go somewhere else, I think if in draft system you're lacking in your halves, I think it's worthy to take a gamble. But for classics, I think a bit of a sit and wait with him. At some stage in his career, he's going to explode. He's going to smash his 40-point average that he got last year. He's going to be up around 70-point average. I truly believe that. It's just a bit of a waiting game. See how he matures. I think he really needs a bit more of the cavalry back around him as well, with a bit more go forward with their forwards. But anyway, 5'8", Katoa, like I said, he's dual. If you want to put him in down into 5'8", same goes. Cody Nikorima, 500k, 51-point average. I think he's just a bit too steep to even consider in the 5'8" role, so he's a bit of an avoid. The centre wingers, we're going to go with Herbie Farnworth first. 728k, 74-point average, breakout season last year. He absolutely brained it. He had 4 100-point games. He was on fire at the back end of the season. Finished with a 5-round average of 101 points. It's enormous work from Herbie. Ever since the end of the Origin period, he just absolutely killed it. So, look, he comes in at a high price at 728k. He's one of these premium guys you're going to have to pay up to get, but it's sort of a thing where you think he's going to have a bit of a regression at 728k. But again, in the they had a test against Samoa over there in England, and he absolutely brained that as well. So if he comes in firing with some of the scores he was getting last year, like I said, 5-round average of 101 points, if he can get that at some stage of the season, he'll be one to watch for everyone, I think. No Origin, good for the Origin period, so keep an eye on him. Jermaine Asako is our next one at 616k with a 63-point average. Look, he fell off a cliff at the back end of last season. I brought him in and he went nuclear with 140-odd points, but ever since then, I kept onto him. I kept hold of him, thinking that eventually he would go bonkers, but never seemed to happen. Only ever went over the 80-point mark once in his last 16 games, so he fell off a cliff like a couple of these blokes did. Not a good finish to the season for the Dolphins there. Finished the season at a price tag of 468k, so you're trying to pick him up now at the start of the season for 616k. It's just a bit steep. I think he's well overpriced, and I'll probably avoid him until he starts getting back to the form of 2023 season. Jack Bostock, we've chucked him in there at 515k with a 52-point average. Look, good rookie season. Fair few ups and downs. He peaked around round 20 where he had a 60-point average, which was fantastic. He was flying. I think a lot of people sort of saw the writing on the wall, though, and they cashed him in and moved on to someone else. The last 7 games of the season, from then, he had an average of 34 points. So, again, this whole Dolphins side just seemed to fall off a cliff during the back end of the season, and the points just weren't coming. So, again, I'll be looking to avoid Jack Bostock. I don't think he's very popular, but, again, avoid him. Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow is down in our fullback spot. Unfortunately, we only get the hammer at fullback this year. No CTW tag, which is very disappointing because he was very popular in the CTWs last year. Only played the 2 games in centre, so that is the reason he hasn't got the CTW tag. 653k at a 66-point average on last year, coming off his best yearly average. Can you believe it? He unfortunately loses his CTW tag, like we said, and look, I think he's going to be a struggle to fit down in that fullback spot. You just want your guns in there. The good thing for Hammer is, though, he's going to have the monopoly on the fullback squad. Trey Fuller's done his ACL, I think it is, so he'll be out for the first half of the season, if not all of it. There's no chance he's going to be slotted into the centres, I don't think, now that Trey's down. Big minutes at fullback coming up for Hammer. Look, if he can get firing, he's a decent option. But again, I think you want to leave it to the cheapies in your fullback or the guns. You don't want to be messing around with guys mid-600 sort of K. Keep it to the experts there in the fullback position. The wrap-up for them, I've got the Dolphins finishing around 9th to 13th spot. I think due to the amount of players exiting, they've got a lot of old heads going as well. They'll struggle a little bit with their depth if there is more injuries like there was last year. They do, however, have a great mix of old and young, bit of old heads and youth. But apart from the Hammer, I think they're just a superstar away from making the semis just yet. I think they have recruited decently, but they've also lost a lot of cavalry there, the poor old Dolphins. So that's them wrapped up. We will have a look at the Gold Coast Titans next. They came in at 14th spot with 8 wins and 16 losses. Back-to-back years, the Titans have finished in 14th spot, so pretty disappointing there up on the Gold Coast. Look, ultimately their season went down in round 2 when Tino Fasumalawe, he did his ACL, went down for the season. I think everyone, as soon as they sort of saw that, their pack leader, their alpha male, going down, their workhorse, I think everyone just instantly thought, oh, well, there goes their season. They're shagged. They put up a decent fight in some games, but again, 14th spot, just not good enough up there, up the Goldie. They really need to find some consistency is what they're struggling. Desi Hasler, he's got his work cut out for him up there. For their signings, they have gained Carter Gordon, from Australian Rugby. He's a bit of a gun. I'm pretty excited about him. And Regan Campbell-Gillard comes up from the Eels. The losses, Aaron Clark, he heads off to the Warriors. Isaac Liu, he is off to the Lee Leopards. Tanner Boyd also goes to the Warriors with Aaron Clark, and Keenan Palacia heads to the Leeds Rhinos. Their run for the first, we'll have a look at their 6 games because round 1 is a bye for them. I think that's going to turn a lot of people off. Should be used as a bit of an advantage having the round 1 bye for us Supercoach players. You get a bit of a look at them. You get an extra week. Hopefully someone's made a bit of money and you can transfer into a different player of the Gold Coast Titans. So we'll have a little look at that. The Dogs away, that's a bit of a tough one because Dogs are very good defensively. Knights at home, Roosters away. Again, Roosters, I don't know what they're going to pull up. Everyone's writing them off, but they've still got a lot of superstars there from the Roosters. Dolphins at home, and then the Dragons away. So there's 3 games in there that I think they can potentially score a lot of points in. But again, a bit of an unknown around the Roosters, and the Dogs defensively will be quite good. So you may be able to pick someone up there that's gained a truckload of money, but again, you're going to get them walking into a Roosters team. So tricky, but we'll reassess in round 3. For the hooking roll there, we've got Sam Verrills. He is at 416k with a 42-point average. Started the year with very limited minutes. He's a guy of interest, but there's a bit of concern around him. Shared the hooking role with the likes of Aaron Clark and Randall. We know that Aaron Clark is gone. Randall shifted into the 13 towards the season's end, but looking like Tino may jag that 13 spot. If not, their forward pack has got a lot of depth in it, so Randall could come and choose some of Sam Verrills' minutes. I think Randall is going to be the perfect number 14 for the Titans there, with his versatility to play in the lock position as well as a hooker position. But anyway, look, from round 16, Sam Verrills, he was averaging 74 minutes at hooker at a 50-point average. Like I said, Randall was playing in the 13 jersey, so a bit skewed with how this season could end up for him. Yeah, look, I'd just keep an eye on it on the trial, see how they play them all together. Front row forward, we've got Tino Fasumalawe, 531k, a 47-point average. Look, just the 2 games from the year before. So ACL injury in the second game comes in at a massive discount. He was priced at 791k for the 2024 season at the start. So his discount is 260k from then. 2023, he had a 78-point average round. It was his best that he had in his career. So he was one of the elite front row forwards in the entire competition for 2023. And even before that, he was very good, but 78-point average was massive. He averaged 62 minutes in 2023 as well, so good, decent minutes. But look, with the addition of Regan Campbell-Gillard, Mo Fodawaker, Jamin Jolliffe in that forward pack, I think they're stacked at the front rower position, and I think they'll put him in the 13 jersey. Look, fingers crossed when he's healthy, he can get up around that 65 minutes a game, which is an increase on his 62 minutes a game in 2023. So that's really promising for Tino. Look, however, there is concern. A lot of people have chucked him in there and they're just going to set and forget him at 531k, and I get it. I understand it. I've been looking at probably going elsewhere. Look, he's going to have a limited preseason. Like I said, it is the 12th of January. The man's only just started running. Bye round in round 1, coming back from an ACL injury. I think there's a chance that they really limit his minutes coming into the season. I'm not sure if he's going to have an immediate Supercoach impact because of these issues. And I think at 513k, it's juicy, but it's also a bit worrying. If you can get a guy like, if you can run Terrell May, Payne Haas, you've got these sort of guys, and you want to start with someone with a bit more not upside, but a bit more of a higher price tag, then Tino starts killing it round 1 and 2. It's easy to drop down to him. The thing that happens with Tino, he gets in there, he re-aggravates an ACL injury, and it's a bit harder to move on to someone. But look, it is juicy. There's a lot of upside to 531k for Tino. There's no doubt about it, but I just think you've got a free couple of games at looking at him with the bye, looking into the Bulldogs. I don't even think he's going to play that big a minute. So if he goes down to his minutes, he gets 40 to 50 minutes, maybe gets 40 to 50 points. He could go down in price. I don't see him having that massive impact. I'm hoping everyone doesn't think he's 531k. He's just going to start averaging 70 points from the get-go. That's not going to happen. Just the way you play it with Tino, I am looking for a more cautious approach. I'm probably going to leave him out and try and pick him up round 3 or 4 if he's braining it. If not, at some stage, round 6 or 7, when they start pumping a bit more minutes into his legs, I'll be definitely picking him up at that stage. So that's my take on Tino. But look, the rest of them, like I said, Regan Campbell-Gallard, Mo Fodawaker, Jamin Jolliffe, they're all very awkwardly priced, and I just think they're so stacked at front row forward with their boys there. I think they're going to eat each other's minutes, and I don't really think any of them are very relevant at all. In the 2RF, we'll run into David Fifita at 749k with a 76-point average. Look, it was considered a down year for Fifita last year, but it was pretty good stats-wise. 76-point average and just a one game over 100 points. People would be turning their nose up at that with David Fifita, but I think that's pretty good going, 76-point average. Still managed to crack the 60-point mark over 75% of games that he was in, so it's still elite levels. He had a base of 46 points, which is massive. Everyone talks about how lazy he is, but he has stepped that up. Drama with him is there's some fresh rumours that his ankle injury could be set back a little bit, so there's a bit of worry that he won't be right for the first couple of games of the season. So I'll be looking to go elsewhere, I think. Pretty high price tag, 749k, but it's relatively cheap for David Fifita, so I'll be looking elsewhere to start the season just with his ankle injury. Fingers crossed he comes back, plays a bit of bench minutes, plays a bit of limited minutes, and then we can pick him up during the season. Again, I'm not sure if Slater will pick this man for Origin, so he could be a handy addition around that sort of period as well. A man that could do very well out of a David Fifita injury is Beau Fermor, 593k with a 60-point average. Has got dual CTW as well, so he was a sort of Mr. Fix-It man there, getting the centre spot, on occasion. So he has still got that CTW dual, which is amazing. Has a 60-point average, but only went over 60 points 11 out of the 22 games, which is a little bit concerning, although he did have an average base of 48 points. So look, if you're looking at Beau Fermor, I would be 100% putting in my CTWs. Also depends on the structure of your side. If your structure of your side has a lot of high upside, low side sort of guys, risk and reward. If you wanted Beau Fermor at 593k in your CTWs as a bit of a set and forget, fingers crossed he can go to 50, 60 points every single week. If that helps the makeup of your team, then go for it. With the David Fifita news, have a little look at Jacob Alick. 295k with a 33-point average. Just keep an eye on him. Just in case he gets that starting spot for Dave Fifita. There's probably a number of people that are in the line for that if he is injured. But yeah, he's probably our pick to get that role. Big raps on him up there at the Titans. For halfback Kieran Foran, fresh news for Kieran Foran is that he's got a bit of an injury coming in, and it looks like they're going to put Jaden Campbell and AJ Brimson in the halves pairing. So I wouldn't be looking at Kieran Foran, especially if he gets a bit of a bench role that they've been talking about, bringing him on as the 14 for what they've said is impact is what is coming out, but I don't know if Kieran Foran's much of an impact sort of player. So one to keep an eye on. Jaden Campbell at 5'8". We'll be looking at the 5'8 positions. Campbell comes in at 700k with a 71-point average. Finished the year with 3 100-point-plus games. And a bit of a surprise at the amount of attacking stats he picked up when he shifted to 5'8 spot. I thought, he was going to be a bit of a liability in defence, which to be fair, he was, but his attacking upside was just so much greater and outweighed his points that it sort of didn't matter that he was missing 6 tackles, 4 to 6 tackles a game. That's only 4 to 6 points when you've got 3 100-point games in you. It sort of doesn't really bother you. Look, he'll be kicking, which is handy. That's always handy. The worry is, like I said, Brimo and him are apparently the halves combination for the start of the year. How's that all going to gel? How's it going to work together? It's got potential to be an amazing footy attacking side with those two in it. It'll be sporadic, but whether anyone has some real direction and real control over the team, it'll be interesting to see if that's how they run with, or they don't move Brimo back to the 14 jersey if it doesn't all work out by the time that Kieran Foran is back. Look, the price tag of $700k to use up in your 5'8s, which has usually been a bit of a dead ringer spot. The risk that's involved in it with the new halves pairing, $700k is probably a bit sticky for me. I'm probably going to look elsewhere with that, with a little bit of value. Again, he's come off a career season. Always told, don't touch the players that come off career season. So $700k is probably a bit steep for me. In the CTWs, that bloke we've been talking about, AJ Brimson, $539k with 55-point average. Injury-affected year for him last year. He only managed 13 games, so he'll be hoping to stay fit and healthy. One of which he only lasted 11 minutes with a score of 5. If you take that out, he's sitting at around a 59-point average. Not much difference there, but yeah, still a bit of a bump up there. Yeah, like we said, we've touched on it before. There's whispers he may be in the halves. Just interesting to see how that is. Look, round 1 bye. I wouldn't be going there. If you get 2 weeks to have a bit of a look at it on the other end, see how that halves combination is looking, I'd be more interested in it there. Brian Kelly, 587k, 60-point average. Look, he's a decent option. He seems to be every year. He's averaged 60 plus the last 2 seasons now, but I'd probably leave him for one of the Titans faithful. 587k. There's a lot more value around there with Greg Marzu and Campbell sitting around there, so I'd be looking at them. The interesting one, Carter Gordon, 336k. The man is 6'2" and 95 kilos, coming over from rugby union, where he played 46 games for the Melbourne Rebels and 8 games for the Wallabies. Look, pretty exciting to see him transfer over. It's good to see we get a couple back on him. Got a couple of games in QRL Cup, last year. Had 4 starts for the Tweed Seagulls in 4 games. This is pretty big stats. He had 4 tries, 3 assists, 4 line breaks, averaged 100 metres ran, and averaged 2 tackle busts a game. He also kicked goals. Look, if he can jag a 5'8 or a centre spot, either one of those, I think he's juicy. 336k. Got to watch him in the trials, just see where he fits in that side. Big stats, even for Queensland Rugby League Cup. Like, that's just enormous sort of stuff, that output that he can produce. He is an international rugby union player, so he's obviously got a shitload of skills. For fullback, Keanu Kinney, 707k, 72-point average. Look, I think he's all but cemented his fullback spot there at the Titans. Blockbuster 2024. Came out of the gates absolutely bolstered. First 4 games, though, he was sitting an average of 37 points. He wasn't getting big minutes. He only got 6 games before that in the previous year, but coming into it, he's still fresh, still a bit of a rookie, still trying to find his feet. Look, from round 12 till season end, though, he played 12 games for an average of 84 points. He was on fire. It puts him in elite territory, 84-point average. If the Titans fire, and he could be a decent pickup as a bit of a pod, again, it's so hard to go past all the superstars there in the fullback spot, but Keanu Kinney, the stats read good. 12 games, 84-point average at the end of the season. He should be nearly in everyone's side. At 707k, he comes at a bit of a discount and a bargain at those sort of numbers. So, look, could be an option in Origin duties, but anyway, we'll see how that plays out. For the Titans, for this year ahead, look, I've got them anywhere from 9th to 15th. 8th to 15th. They might squeeze into the semis. Look, with the forward pack they have, it's a good forward pack. They've got attacking upside in players like Brimo, Campbell. You've got bloody Keeney. I wouldn't be shocked if they got into the 8, although I wouldn't be shocked if they ended up in 15th spot. If it all goes to shit like it has so many years at the Gold Coast, it just wouldn't bowl me over if they end up down near the bottom of the ladder fighting for the spoon. I don't think they'll be that low, but yeah, look, Desi Hasler, I think he's got to start delivering a bit of consistency to this footy side before they are relevant, sorry. Righto, next one, someone who is incredibly relevant, the Melbourne Storm. They finished first last year, 19 wins with 5 losses. An incredible year last year, got back to the minor premiership, made a grand final. I think that is just going to spur them on even harder this year, even though their record was so incredible this year. They'll be using that as fuel for their 2025 season. A bit of stats on them. They made the top 4 for the 8th time in 9 years. In those 9 years, it was their 5th minor premiership. That's just insanely consistent stuff for the Melbourne Storm. So it's pretty easy to say they'll be back up there again this year. No doubt. You don't expect anything less from these guys. For the signings tracker, they gained Stefano Utoikamanu from the Tigers. That is a massive one for them. And Moses Leo from New Zealand Rugby. They get him. For the losses, look, there's a few here, but they're relatively innocuous, I think, for the Melbourne Storm. They've lost the likes of Remus Smith, Young Tunamapia, Chris Lewis, and Tepai Moroa. They've all been released or retired, either way. Aaron Panay, he is off to the Lee Leopards. So they lose no guns. They have no big movements. Remus Smith wasn't playing a great deal of rugby league towards the back end of the season anyway. But yeah, Chris Lewis, he was a handy 14, but I think they've got a bit better person in there, which we'll get into. Their run to the start of the year is the Eagles at home, into the bye, Penrith at home, Dragons and Manly away, and then the Warriors back at home. It's a decent draw. The cheeky bit is the bye into Penrith. You know, usually you see the bye nice and close, you think, I probably won't run that. But when you're looking at guys like the superstars in this team, getting them on a bye into Penrith, it makes the headaches a little bit harder, I think. But anyway, we'll have a look at some of the players. We'll start off at hooker again. We're going to look at the number 1 man, Harry Grant, 691k with a 70-point average. Look, with the masses looking at cheapies like Mamazelis and Sandon Smith, there's an argument there that you could get a pod in Harry Grant. To start with him and think that no one else, or not no one else, but the bulk of people aren't going to pay up for it is pretty crazy. He's coming off his 5th season with a 70-plus point average. Look, there's no doubt you're going to look at him at some stage of the season, whether you stuff around and, you know, use up a couple of trades to get him in, or if you start the season with him. But like I said, the round 2 bye into Penrith is a bit concerning, but it is Harry Grant, so Penrith might not trouble him too much. That'll be a bit of a revenge game for them as well. But look, if you wanted to use that round 2 bye with your backup hooker as Mamazelis, you'll still barely be missing out on any points anyway. So it's a bit of a win-win if you wanted to do that. But yeah, juicy news that he could be a pod. Look, I probably won't go there, just because I was hurt so much from him last year. I started with him and I ended up not finishing with him last year. So 691k is pretty decent for him. Like I said, 70-point averages for the last 5 seasons. He's the superstar hooker in that position. Front row forwards, the big guy, Stefano Utoikamanu, he comes over from the Tigers. He is 529k, 54-point average there at the Tigs. A lot of hype around him. Look, from a footy perspective, I think it's a fantastic signing. The 1-2 punch that's going to be him and Big Nelson rolling up the field with King in the middle as well, it's going to be an absolute handful. They're going to be land of the giants sort of stuff out there down in Melbourne. They're going to lay an unbelievable platform for arguably the best spine in the game. So as a football perspective, I think Stefano Utoikamanu is a fantastic signing for the Storm. Supercoach-wise, I'm not 100% convinced that he's going to have this massive upside that people are looking at getting him in. 529k is pretty expensive for a front row forward. I just don't see where the growth is going to come from. 54-point average from 50 minutes last year. I don't think he's going to get any more than 50 minutes down there at the Storm. Yes, he's going to be running off Harry Grant, but I'm not sure how much room there is in between that forward pack for him to gain all these extra points, all these extra hit-ups. I just don't see it. Look, 25% of games he went over the 60 mark, but again, it's all fluctuated because it's a new team, new environment. Did have an average base of 41, which is decent, but again, 529k, you need a bit more, need a bit more for that sort of biggie to be played. He was the man at the Tigers. He's going to be, not a run-of-the-mill front rower, but he will be, a bit of a stock standard thing there with Nelson and King there. But look, I just don't know if his Supercoach output is going to significantly improve. I have no doubt that they will give him a big foot up the arse that he probably needs to improve as a player. But yeah, Supercoach-wise, I'm a little bit up in the air about it. The next guy we're talking about, Nelson Asafa-Solomona at 363k, 37-point average last year. Suspended for the first few games of the year. Along with that bye in round 2, look, he at the start of the season, he's out and out. He's in a void. But he's cheap. He's got dual front row forward, 2RF. Last year was a shocker for him. He came in at the season. He was overweight. Preseason was terrible. Didn't get the minutes. Look, last year he was averaging about 31 minutes a game or something like that. Ridiculous for him. He usually averages about 50 minutes a season sort of thing. So it was the first year he went under 50-point average in 6 years, which is massive for him. He's averaged 50 minutes in a season for that 6-year span as well. So you would think that he gets a lot more minutes. Surely he has a better preseason under his belt this year. Look, I'm not saying he's a start with side of guy. He's a bit of an avoid to start the season, but down the line, if he is still 360k and he's starting to churn out 50 minutes, I think there's an opportunity where you can get some money out of him. The value pick there, Lazarus Vailepo, 232k, 25-point average. Look, this is just a cheapie. He came in the Storm system and he played 6 games last year, 21-minute average, nothing special, PPM of 1.2. Got the nod in the grand final for Nelson that missed out there. But look, he's just one that I think we should keep an eye on if he gets a bench role. There is guys like Alec McDonald there that probably have a bit of monopoly on that, but injuries coming in, they've got big raps on him. He's massive. He's got legs like bloody tree trunks. So keep a bit of an eye on him. For the 2RF, we've got Eliesa Katoa, 717k, 73-point average. Look, over the last 2 years, I think he's proven that he's a Supercoach elite in the 2RF spot. Just the 3 games out of his 22 appearances, he went under 50, so that's massive for a 2RF. Super consistent. A lot of his attacking stats are coming over the fact that he is on the same side as Jerome Hughes. He gives him lovely short bowls. Eliesa Katoa is running one of the best lines in the game for a back rower, which is beautiful to watch when you own him. Every chance of a sniff of a try. He's very handy to watch while being an owner. Nightmare if you're not. Look, the base stats are good as well in that position. 47 points in base. Got upside. I think he's a slam dunk if you wanted to run the gauntlet and start with him at 717k. He's a fantastic pick. Sean Bloor, 534k, 54-point average on last year. Look, it was a good year without being great last year. The only issue with Bloor last year is that his side of the field had Munster as his dominant ball player. Now, a lot of ball went to Hughes and Katoa's side because of the injuries from Munster, and then Wishart coming into that side, obviously not being as dominant as Munster. So a lot more ball went over the side of Katoa and Hughes. Don't know how much that's going to change this year. I think Hughes is still going to be the dominant half after the year he's had. I think they're going to give him a bit more free range of how much ball he can have. But I think if Munster comes into it fit, he is going to demand a lot more ball. Playing healthy, I think Sean Bloor could be a bit of an uptick there at 534k. But again, I'd be using the bye Panthers game to just have a bit of a look at him. For the halfbacks, talking about that guy, Jerome Hughes, 805k, 82-point average, coming off a Dally M Player of the Year season and a grand final appearance. Hughes also had his best season in Supercoach by some margin. Finished the year with 6 100-point games, which was massive, and only went sub-60 in 4 out of his 20 games. Mind you, though, 2 games in his 20s, which is sort of what we knew him from seasons past, but still, 60 points plus, in 16 games out of 20 is enormous. It was well and truly the dominant half last year, like we talked about. Munster having those injuries, got the ball a ridiculous amount of times. So he's got a monster price tag. He's got the buy-in in round one, coming off a season where I don't know if he'll be able to match it at 805k. He's probably a little bit overpriced, but I still think he's a gun. I still think he's going to be a Supercoach gun. I think around Origin period, everyone is going to have him in their squad, even though the Storm jersey isn't that friendly around the bye period and that because they have so many players that usually do play Origin. They've looked after him a little bit, the NRL, as they do. Look, I'd just be waiting. I'd be waiting to see if Munster's firing, how the bye goes, how Penrith game goes. You might pick him up a bit cheaper if he has a couple of tough games there. Tyron Wishart, he's at 556k with a 57-point average on last year. Look, he was the main beneficiary of Munster having an injury-affected year. Took it with both hands, though. He played phenomenal. I think he showed what his worth is. Look, 3 100-point games for him. Unfortunately, I think he's long odds to get any sort of significance in Supercoach this year. He's going to play 14 unless there's an injury where he gets back into that starting half role. If there is, and he has come off the bench as a 14, played limited minutes, he was playing about 20-something minutes a game, his price will plummet, and then we know what we're going to get from him if he jumps into that halves role. Just look out for Munster. And I think actually if we look out for Munster, he's got that hip injury. We'll talk about him soon, but we'll go on to it now. With that hip injury, if he isn't right for the start of the season and something goes wrong with that hip injury, then we can look at Wishart. But for now, too risky and too high priced. 5'8", we've talked about him enough, so we'll run into him. Cam Munster, 609k with a 62-point average. Yeah, injury-affected year last year. Tough year for the big fella. Injured himself in the preseason, slipping over in the shower. I think everyone thought that was a load of shit, but it ended up being true. So after that, never really got firing throughout the season. He comes in at a 120k discount on what he did for 2024. Well priced. And look, a lot of people are going to look at going there. Last year was his lowest average in 6 years and was only the second time in 7 years where he was ranked outside the top 50 overall for Supercoach. He's a stud at a discount. So look, if he fits in your squad, he fits in your squad. I'd just be looking at how the trials go. I'm a little bit scared off by the round 2 bye round and the Panthers game, like I said, but still, proven gun at 609k, you probably can't go wrong, really. The CTW is not a great deal for the CTWs there. You've got the likes of Meaney and Coates, Warbrick. Any day they could go 100 and go ballistic, but the consistency with them, they've got that much mouths to feed out there wide, and the halves being so dominant with their points that they accumulate with Supercoach, it's just a bit hard to really put a finger on who's going to do well. I think their averages will average out fine, but there's no real value there for me. Apart from the fella by the name of Jack Howarth, 426k with a 43-point average for the big fella. Made his move into the centres last year, after playing a couple of games off the bench to start the season in the second row. As far as footy is concerned, he seemed to improve week in, week out. He was running the ball harder. His defensive decisions were quite good. He ended up keeping Remus Smith from getting back in that side, and Melbourne have held on to him for a number of years, and they hold him in very high regards. Had 3 games coming off the bench for the start of the season before moving into the centres, and after that he played 10 games at an average of 52 points per game. I think his confidence is going to get better playing centres. He's going to have an entire preseason playing in the centres. So I can see him going 55-point average probably at a minimum. Like, he's got a lot of upside. Looks like an absolute unit in preseason training. So keep an eye on him. He might be one of these guys that we pick up in round 3 after he's looking to make a shite load of cash. But yeah, Jack Howarth, put him in the black book. I don't know if you'd start with him unless you were going to start him on your bench, but 426k is probably a little bit steep to start on the bench. For the fullbacks, the unluckiest story in rugby league, nearly, Ryan Pappenhausen, 616k, 63-point average on last year. Comes in at the best price fullback of anyone, I believe. For the value-wise, 616k is phenomenal. He's a proven gun with just a horror run of injury, the poor bloke. Reportedly, he's going to be all recovered from his injuries. He did have a fractured leg at the end of the season, a small fracture, albeit, but he seems to be ready to go. He's had the screws removed out of the leg, so he will be fit and firing, no doubt, for round 1. look, there's no doubt what he can do. There's no doubt what he can do at all. But I wouldn't be touching him until round 4, I think. Look, the bye, Panthers again, talked about it. It's repetitive, but it needs to be talked about because it has such an impact on their scores. If you were going to go in to start the season, I'd be a little bit worried, and I'd be a little bit worried if something does happen, doesn't perform in those games, and he starts to lose a bit of cash, it's going to be a bit hard to leak him up to a superstar. Although, if you wanted to run Ryan Papenhuyzen instead of an Isaiah Yongi, it'd be very easy to put him down if Isaiah Yongi starts killing it and something happens with Ryan Papenhuyzen. I just think there's better scorers out there. If you're going to start paying up $600K, it's getting a bit steep. I'd be looking at the superstars like Latrell, Turbo, Pongers, Walsh, Drinkwater. There's a plethora of guys there for that fullback spot that'll absolutely brain it. I'm just a little bit hesitant on Ryan Papenhuyzen. Wait and see for him. If he brains it, jump on. Look, for the Storm, I've got them finishing 1st to 3rd. They lose basically no one of incredible importance, and they gain a front rower with unbelievable potential in Stefano Utsikamanu. So I think they're coming to a competition as favourites, and with what I consider the best spine in the game. I think it's absolutely justified. So I think they'll have a stellar of a year. They will be competition favourites, and so they bloody should be. All right, guys, that's about all we've got time for. That'll wrap us up for today. Yeah, like I said, keep an eye out for when the season actually kicks off. We're going to have a bit of a run into our 40-20 Cup. For that, prizes are coming plenty for that. There'll be some big news there. We will get onto that once the season launches. But please follow us on Instagram. Jump over there. We're doing player profiles on every team. I think we've got 3 out so far. So every time I release a video, I'm going to put a player profile up on our Instagram. Just a lot better way to get in touch with us as well. Better system than YouTube for commenting, and Spotify as well. So yeah, jump onto our Instagram. That's about us, legends. Take care. Look after each other. Cheers.